Hello? Okay, well, go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Rocky Mountain Inventors. We got quite a few new faces here, which is great to see. We're a 501c3 nonprofit educational group helping inventors transition from product to business. That's the main thing we try to help you with. So we have presentations on funding, finance, manufacturing, prototyping, marketing, social media, taxes, legal, all this stuff. We try to have a mixture of things. So tonight, I was hoping for a good turnout. We've got Chinese manufacturing with Brian Kelleghan, but I'll let him introduce himself. I met Brian at what's called the Fashion IP. It was our first meeting with the Denver Patent Office in December, right? I think it was. Anyway, Denver has our first design patent examiner now. So we were exploring a new area. We hadn't done anything on design patent presentations and what they can do. So that's always an additional consideration on a product, in addition to utility patent and other things. So anyway, just a few housekeeping things. If you have an idea and you're not patent pending, we haven't already publicly disclosed it, be sure to keep it confidential. And for the people that are new, we meet the second and fourth Mondays, 7 to 9 o'clock here. We do have additional meetings that are announced via email on our website and through Meetup. We do coordinated training with the Denver Public Library, downtown branch on searching, and sometimes things with the Denver Patent Office. So that'll be pretty patent, trademark, copyright specific things and the researching. And let's see, coming up for the fourth Monday in March, I've got Shane Pott presenting on licensing and his experiences with his products. So he had a not so great licensee to start, and then he finally got rid of them and got a better licensee. So he's going to talk about his experiences. Because I know a lot of people think that once they get a licensee, it's nirvana and life is great, but you got to be careful because they can become your worst competitor. Anyway, usually when we do presentations, feel free to ask questions anytime during the presentation. And we do live webcast and video record this. And there's a link on our homepage to get to this, so you can have it for later. And there's no password required for that. So usually what we do is we do a round robin around the room, and everyone takes like a minute and introduces themselves and what they've got going on. So I guess I'll start with you. Oh. Okay, Paul? This was Chinese manufacturing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Don? Mm-hmm. That's usually what we have, I got my patent and trademark, now what? Richard? Great. Okay. Greg? Steve? Okay. Gary? Okay. And Brad? Okay. And Joan? Jan, I mean. What's over there? Yeah, I just want to keep the business end of things in mind. And Carol? Carmel? Okay. And Roberto? Okay, great. And remember, ask questions at any time, and I'll turn it over to Brian.
See if I get, is it close enough? Do I hear? Do you hear? We've been introducing one another. Now what I'm going to do is introduce myself. You took 1 minute to explain yourself and a little bit about your innovations and experience with patents. I'm going to take about 30 or 35 minutes to tell you about my experience, because my experience happens to be really quite extensive. Let me grab my pointer PowerPoint contraption, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself as Brian Kelleghan. I have a company manufacturing accessories up in Longmont, Colorado. It started, let's see if if I can advance this or not here. Okay, there we go. I was going up and it should go down. I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. I was very active in scouting and in sports. I got a degree in business in Wisconsin, outside of Green Bay. And it was there that I got my exposure to rock climbing. And the camping took me into a place where I got to rock climb and camp, and I was having a blast. When I got out of college, I wanted to pursue my primary goal, which was to have a business and be an investor. And every Monday morning, I'd wake up and want to make $1 million by Thursday, right? Well, it turned out a different way, but we get there through this presentation. I became a specialist in foreign currency trading. I moved to Colorado solo. When I did that, I made a critical move, and that was to go and join the Scouts here in downtown Denver, a few blocks from here. I wanted to meet people that shared common interests, like scouting, and it was in that Scout meeting that I was directed to REI, which is literally down the street on Alameda in 1984, to pick up equipment, sleeping bags, that sort of thing, for Scouts because they had a 15% discount. Well, I went to that store, and there was a sign that said they need some part-time help. So I took that position in the climbing department and camping department. It was in that department, in that building down the street here in 1984, that I started working with climbing webbing. With climbing webbing, I've actually built 30 years of a successful business, as I'll explain. I had a huge surge of interest in rock climbing. I took it from just climbing on short 30, 40, 50-foot cliffs to cliffs that take 7 days to get to the top. I did climbs in Europe. I've done them in America. It was a passion that basically provides the foundation for all of the products that I've been developing almost completely. So I have a passion that I love, and that's where I wound up working. That's one of the reasons why I'm able to do it for 30 years. I continued with the primary goal of being a currency broker. I was licensed in 7 different categories with securities, and I wound up taking an opportunity, an offer to start a company in a boutique bank in Los Angeles. I did a short 2-year stint in LA. While I was there, I suffered the boutique being purchased, so I took that trading desk and made it my own company. I created my very first company. It was a fully licensed securities company. My last name, Kelleghan, I named it Kelleghan Securities. I was doing pretty good. At 27 years old, I was pretty excited. I got married. Next. I was working at the REI store in LA, and I wound up making these climbers, chalk bag belts. If you're familiar with climbing, you carry chalk around your waist, and you dip in the chalk, and you have a way to avoid slipping on your handholds and that sort of thing. At this REI store that I worked at part-time, after I got out of my paisley tie, my suit coat, I got into jeans, a t-shirt, and a blue vest. People learned that I could go ahead and take 4 feet of 1-inch webbing, cut it, take 2 4-inch pieces of accessory cord, climbers use, cut it and bend it on itself, melt it together, slide it onto the webbing, and weld that webbing together to hold the D-rings. And now I had a very simple D-ring belt, and the customer only had to pay for the raw material. I happened to be the captive labor. So people learned about this and started coming in a lot. So I finally got it in my head that, you know what, I should be making these at home and not be annoyed by constant manufacturing in that store. So I went to the manager and I said, hey, why don't you let me do this? He liked the idea of me making them at home. I delivered my first purchase order with REI. And it's up there, 50 belts. I delivered them on a Saturday. They were sold out by Tuesday. So the manager was pretty impressed. He said, well, why don't I go ahead and call Seattle? I'll talk to the main buyer up there. And her name was Candace Johnson. She gave me a call. She ordered 1,020 belts. So let me put you on hold while I get an order form and put her on hold and drew a little grid system to create my first purchase order form. The belt sales were really pretty amazing. They were good right out of the box. At the same time that I'm trading Deutschmark, Swiss franc, Japanese yen. It was my first big idea. There's no sewing in that belt. So the cost of manufacturing, buying equipment and all that was really quite low cost entry. Then I had a massive stroke. I was completely paralyzed right down the middle. Right hand side, soft as melted butter. I lost my speech. I lost my dexterity. I lost my securities firm. I was in a pretty tough spot. My wife had gotten pregnant. And now I'm babbling, drooling out the right side of my mouth. It was a dramatic pitfall. I was running triathlons. I was extremely fit. Doctors all over Southern California came down to see me and test to try and figure out why this healthy guy who has no sediment in his veins had a clot. They couldn't figure it out. So they said after 2 weeks, if you don't know where the clot came from, you need to take Coumadin and be hemophiliac the rest of your life. I said, no can do. I wound up choosing to go to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. It was an amazing situation. I basically lost everything, went bankrupt with that experience. Even the check I used to pay for my first webbing bounced. It was that bad. At any rate, at the Mayo Clinic, it is the most amazing medical facility in the United States. If you ever run into something difficult, oh my God, please do beat a path to that place. Their style of analysis is amazing. I showed up 5 doctors for 8 hours a day, tested me 28 days, and they couldn't figure it out. But they said there's a guy on the board, very creative guy, people, a person like you who think out of the box. So he lays me down on a table, puts an IV in my arm and starts pumping iodine, takes a monitor from my heart, goes to all the extremities. He's like, you're completely healthy. There's nothing wrong here. And so I pull it out. I sit up on the table. I'm rolling the gown down. He says, tell me again what happened when you had the stroke. He says, I'm doing pull-ups after doing range of motion exercises because I had just come out of a walking cast. I didn't want to heal hard. I wanted total flexibility. So I got up and do my pull-ups, and coming off the pull-ups, I collapsed to the floor, so I feel weird and lost my speech. So wait a minute. Why don't you go ahead and lie back down? All of your testing, 4 weeks at the Mayo and 2 weeks in LA, was done while you were resting. Your geometry, everything in your plumbing changes when you bear down. Put a nurse on my ankles, nurse on my shoulders, locked in an isometric sit-up, and a hole in the middle wall of my heart blew dirty blood into my brain blood. It's like, oh my God. You have to either sew the hole shut or stay on Coumadin. And I'm like, jack the hood, let's go ahead and sew the hole shut. During that time, I was literally receiving orders, some of my first orders for belts from REI's top buyer. Her name is Candace Johnson. Candace Johnson gave me the single best advice I've ever given or ever taken in 31 years. And that is, when I said to her, what do you want on this purchase order? She said, okay, this, and this, but what's next? I said, well, everything is selling great. She says, you got to stop that. You got to change it. It was the best advice that I try to give to anybody that's ever developing your product. If you have a success, don't sit on it and just stay comfortable and isolated and siloed on it. You have to constantly change. She was so dead on right. I internalized that notion. I brought in my company mantra, relentless innovation and creativity, and I live by it to this day. I was inventing last night in a movie with my 14-year-old son. I cannot not do it. I have to change all my stuff all the time. How did I get where I am today, 30 years later, with a successful manufacturing business? It's because of following that idea. It was a big idea. I wanted to take advantage of the success I had with debuting the chalk bag belt. It was good. Why don't I go ahead and try another idea? And that was another climbing piece of equipment called the Bison chalk ball chalk dispenser. The chalk ball idea was born of my experience in gymnastics in high school. We would put chalk into one of the old, what I would call a basketball player's Irish socks that run all the way up to your knee with three, colorful stripes at the top, cotton socks. Well, I happened to be in a laundry room, and I opened a dryer, and I saw a lady's nylon. Oh my God, put chalk in ladies' socks, and that's a far superior material that would enable the chalk to pass through that wall in a much more efficient fashion. It would be very thin, so it would fit comfortably in the chalk bag, and it would solve spillage problems when climbers would tie their shoes or fall and roll onto the ground after popping off of a bouldering problem or something like that. And more so, and it became a big deal, when I introduced this product, indoor climbing had just started. Climbing indoors with climbers that have loose chalk would poof all of that powder in the air, and they would breathe it. And it would leave dust all over the place. So when I debuted the Bison chalkball chalk dispenser, it became mandatory in all of Europe, particularly Europe because their cost of real estate is much higher than ours. An indoor climbing gym in Europe is the size of a two-car garage in the beginning. Now it's much grander, but it was a crucial thing. I wound up having a 7-year monopoly with the Bison chalkball dispenser, but it was there in Europe where people learned to copy exactly a duplication of what I was making in America and brought it back to America. When it came to America, I started my first exposure to trying to defend IP, intellectual property. When I came up with the Bison chalkball idea, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be good and big. So I asked a friend, where can I find a patent attorney? And I want to try and protect it exactly where you guys are right now. I went to that attorney who happened to be a software attorney for IBM. He's going to retire next year. He was more focused on hardware. And I had this simple, really the opposite of complex product. And he's like, nah, Brian, you can't protect that. It's too similar to a rosin bag for a baseball player. So I'm like, okay. Well, I went ahead and got a trademark for the Bison chalkball chalk dispenser, and I went to market with the war tactic of be the firstest with the mostest. And I had some success with that. But now, with the experience I've had over 30 years, there's no question in my mind that it could have been protected better had I done it with things like trade dress and some design patents. The previous attorney was more focused on utility. There's a teachable moment on that, and that is, if you have a product, please go and select somebody that navigates, has maybe some specialty in that kind of category. If you can isolate it that way, try to find somebody that has experience protecting product in that area. It would have helped me immensely. I wound up experiencing copycats. I had American companies that came out with absolute duplicates of the Bison chalkball truck dispenser, but calling the super chalkball. So I went ahead and protected the trademark, and I was able to divert some of that commerce, maintaining my market share. It was very interesting because it has become, in my sport, kind of like the Kleenex name issue, or trademark issue, because now there are at least 30 companies that have duplicates of this idea, and they all call it a chalkball until I give them a call and I say, hey, you may not be aware, but there is a trademark protecting that, and you need to go ahead and change it. And there's a teachable piece of information on that. My first win, I successfully defended the Bison chalkball trademark against these people. Probably one of the best pieces of advice I can give you with your products, if they are infringed upon, a lot of people want to just go ahead and go to war. That's a terrible approach to it. What I've learned, and I've exercised it repeatedly, I have experience defending my patents somehow, some way, legally, over 65 times. It's mind-boggling. The frustration is overwhelming. But it is emotionally and financially far more effective to isolate, identify the decision maker with the infringing company and contact that person and approach that person with humility. Hi, Bob. My name is Brian Kelleghan. I wanted to call you about a Bison chalkball product. You probably did not know, but I actually have some intellectual property on this, and I wanted to let you know. I see that you have chosen to pursue this as a revenue stream for yourself, and thank you for recognizing the value of the product, but by law, I have to take action to protect my ideas as you would yours. But how can we do this and go forward? Can I get you set up for a license? So I don't go into the theater of IP protection like an Irishman ready to fight, trying to attack. Start with humility. It has saved immense amounts of money. It's really a dramatically effective way to go into it. Getting patents is a ticket to the game. To defend them is brutal. So the next product that I came up with was, again, following Candace Johnson's advice, change it. I was making chalk bag belts that were one colored webbing with two little robots on it. And I said, okay, well, what's the opposite? What can I do to change it? From a plain canvas, why don't I weave a picture in it? Well, I went to over 24 weavers in the United States, and guess what they said? I said, well, Brian, how much belt experience do you have? I said, none, maybe, 12 months worth. Well, do you have any experience with webbing? I'm like, no, I just climb with it and protect myself with it. So, well, you're a little out of your league here. To weave a picture in webbing, it would cost about 600% more money to pay for a yard of webbing. So we're not going to reconfigure our looms to go ahead and do it. Nobody would even pay 600% for the same yard of webbing just because it has a picture in it. Fortunately, because of my experience in dealing with foreign or European people, I said, hey, well, I'm going to go find somebody to listen to me over there. I lucked into meeting a guy that had just inherited his dad's weaving factory. And he said, well, I want to do something different too. It's going to cost you 600% more than our average cost of webbing. But yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So I wound up getting this French man to weave the dancing Kokopelli Native American artwork that you see pictured up there on the screen. It's the first pictorial high-strength webbing that had ever been woven. There's a sample of it here up on the table. You can take a look at it. It was hugely successful. My tiny little webbing company just exploded in sales. When I debuted this webbing in Salt Lake City back in 1990, I had to literally push people out of the booth at the end of the day. They were so intrigued by it. The company doubled or tripled its sales 7 years in a row. Some of my first customers included, for example, Tiva Sandals. Tiva Sandals was making webbing with either one color webbing, stripes, or checkerboards. When I came out with pictures, it just went nuts. It was really quite fabulous. So I continue my education in IP protection. I wanted to go and get a design patent for my dancing Kokopelli pattern for webbing. And they said, no. The only way you're going to be able to protect that is with copyrights. So I expanded my knowledge, gained more, learning to defend the copyrights that were soon to follow in this category too, with copyrights. So now I've got design patents, trademarks, copyrights. This was very successful with patterns that were on one side of the webbing. All the buckles at that time required feeding the webbing through the buckle and then folding it back to cinch it to tighten up your belt. And that would eliminate or obliterate the picture that I have brought to the market. So I started designing belt buckles. This was a very useful, teachable experience for me. I came up with an idea. I'm not a mechanic or an engineer, but I knew the tolerances of plastics that I have worked with as a Boy Scout in a million different webbing applications. So I designed this buckle. I call it the T-Lock. I brought the design to the company, National Molding in New York, and went over there, and they have all of this experience. They couldn't make the buckle work. So I flew up there, visited the factory. I walked around the factory, and we happened to be in the copy machine room. And I'm like, to the owner, Joseph, I'm like, Joseph, this idea would work. So I drew a two-view, a top-down and a side view of the lever on the buckle. I said, this idea would work. He said, no, that's not going to work. There are PhDs. I have PhDs here that say it won't work. I'm like, it'll work. And he's like, well, it's not going to work, and I'm not going to invest the money in making it. I said, Joseph, it's my buckle. I'll pay for the work. Like, all right. So I flew back home that day. I was so frustrated by that. I went to my phone. As soon as I went in the building, I called his secretary. I said, I want you to put me on hold while you run to the copy room. Take that box top, flip it on the copy machine, fax it to me. It's okay, so she does that. 10 minutes later, the owner, Joseph, calls me. What are you going to do with those drawings? I said, well, if it works, it's obviously going to be a patentable idea. Well, it's not going to work. Well, it worked. So, what I learned in this experience is with the T-lock buckle, I was able to not only pursue my gut, even when you have professionals telling you it won't work, go ahead and follow your heart. To protect it, though, I learned the value of creating a trail with your IP. Super crucial. In the back end, the owner of that company wound up exposing me to the more distasteful part of dealing with IP. He was pissed off. I wouldn't include him on the patent. So what do you think he did? He did a design around. So he wound up creating a buckle, knowing the buckle intimately. I'm having huge success with the buckle. So he wound up making a buckle that was modified just enough to get around the patent, right? So here I get exposure to the concept of design around, and then in my conversations with the IP attorneys, I learn about the notion of confusion with the end user. At what point does his slightly modified buckle become his idea, but not mine? It's an imprecise thing. Provides plenty of work for IP attorneys. One of the reasons why it hasn't been a finite measure, it's not a mathematical equation, it hasn't even been decided at the Supreme Court level yet. It just went to the Supreme Court in the case between Apple and Samsung on infringement on the designs on that original Apple phone. And the Supreme Court said, well, we're not going to decide yet. We're going to push it back down to the lower level and have them sort it out even a little bit more. But don't always believe your PhDs. Create a way to track your progress with your patents so that if you have to fight against people in the future, you'll be armed, you'll have the tools to do it. Invasion of the copycats. So I had a very successful T-lock buckle. Within 120 days, I'm at the next trade show, and there's the T-lock buckle made in Korea. I'm starting to get exposed to foreign infringers. How can I attack these guys? They're very difficult to reach when they're 7,000 miles away. This is the first confrontation that I had with that percentage of change concept, the consumer confusion. But business is booming. I'm expanding into other markets besides just belts to hold up your pants. I created an isolated company with pets because in the pet industry, there's a huge propensity to sue if the pet gets away. The first weaving company that saw what I was doing with pictorial webbing in Europe started weaving in South Carolina. I wound up buying that company and I brought it to Longmont, Colorado. And I became a weaver, a weaving facility, another separate company in Longmont, Colorado. Then I expanded again, pursuing, as I mentioned, at the front end. I love rock climbing. Why don't I do something with the ubiquitous carabiner? I wanted to go and laser engrave carabiners and whistles with messages, like the name of our Rocky Mountain Inventors Association, or whomever, whatever the message is, onto those pieces. I walked into my office blowing on a cylindrical whistle, and my staff said, Brian, what the heck are you doing? We're belt makers. Don't even think about blowing these whistles and selling whistles. It would drive me nuts. I said, I think there's something with this. These whistles are so cool. So I started pursuing that idea, and one of the places that I went to explore and sell this idea of laser engraving messages and logos onto brightly aluminum anodized carabiners and whistles. Went to Orlando, met with Disney buyers. I had a bona fide aha moment. I'm trying to sell them on the idea of laser engraving the logo for the new park with the Animal Kingdom and with a train of animals and all that. Like, Brian, what are you nuts? We don't sell climbing equipment. We sell cartoon characters. I said, well, then why don't we design the carabiner to look like the cartoon that you want? Custom-shaped carabiners. At this point in the history of carabiners, I know the history of carabiners. I reenacted Civil War battles. I'm one of those guys that dresses up like a Civil War soldier and shoots blanks at guys on the other side. Where did the carabiner come from? It came as a clip to secure a carbine rifle on a cavalry soldier's saddle. You wanted the carbine to be lost while you're charging through the battle. Well, every carabiner since then was designed with function first. What they want is a better functioning piece. It's the myopia of the common man for designers. It's not wrong, but when it comes to design patents, I chose to throw that functionality part of design in the trash can and actually change how it looks. Not caring how it works, but how it looks. Well, we went ahead and made samples of this idea, showed them to the buyer. He said, nah, no can do. But he went on vacation in Europe. His assistant, a gal who hit it off with my wife, said, you know what, why don't we try 5,000 pieces? They sold out in 14 days. He's like, oh my God, this is big. So I went ahead and took the concept of the rock climber's carabiner, bent it into this shape. It was absolutely explosively successful. We sold this carabiner or variations of it about 18 years. I brought over a sample. If you want to see it after our talk, you can see the first cartoon or character-shaped, uniquely shaped carabiner in the world. The original one is about this big, about a dinner plate, and then we eventually brought it down to this size. This is the one that sold so quickly, we could barely keep them in stock. Eventually, I came up with an idea on a different way to make the carabiner. Instead of bending round wire, why not extrude it in a long pipe and slice it like sausage? Then it enables me to achieve higher resolution in the goal of creating cartoon characters. So we got even closer to a perfect rendition. The next idea, though, is what I keep saying. We go back to Candace Johnson's advice. Change it. It's really successful. Why not change it? So then we went ahead and brought out the yin-yang version of the Mickey carabiner. Or why not do Tigger? Or Mickey's whole body? Or Winnie the Pooh? Right? Carry that idea forward. Keep changing it. Don't sit still with this really good idea that you have. You will be absolutely thrilled to have a successful product. Plop yourself down on that railroad track, you're making money, and you will get blown over by a freight train of bigger, more moneyed people that make their business big and successful by seeing everybody coming into the market underfunded, but with a great idea. And they come in and try and do the same thing and participate in this new market that you have opened up. It's very, very dangerous to do battle with these titans. But the only way to build your brand and nourish it and be successful at it is to constantly change it. When I had the explosive success with this idea, you have to figure out how you're going to protect it. So I realized that I could take this Mickey Mouse idea, you put chin to chin, now it looks like a dog bone. And I'm like, oh my God, I can go ahead and take this concept in a million different ways. What the heck am I going to do to protect this concept? Because it's a disruptive innovation. All of these ideas for carabiner shapes is going to be too easily copied. I had to get a plan. So I wound up going over to attorneys Rick Martin and his other assistant, Margaret Paulson. Margaret Paulson is the one that I worked with by far the most. One of the best pieces of advice that I give you when searching for an attorney is to do not be intimidated by them. I know that really well. My father was an attorney. So I have an immense amount of experience with attorneys. When I went to Margaret and Rick, they said it's $10,000 for a utility patent and $5,000 for design patent. I said, well, that's all fine and dandy, but I'm going to buy in volume, so you're going to give me a break, right? If I give you 5 patents, guarantee you that I'm going to do 5 patents, what is the best price you can give me? And they reduced that price by 40% for me. In doing that, you have 2 winners. One winner is you. You're unfunded. You're trying to launch something, get it off the ground. You're managing your money. Now it's much more affordable to do that, right? The attorney benefits because by showing that he or she is willing to invest a little bit in your idea and that sort of thing, create a win-win situation. Let's work together. Let's make a relationship for a long time. When you select your attorney, don't think it's a one-shot deal. We'll say something like a plumber that comes in and fixes something in your house and then you don't see him again. If you're going to get involved in intellectual property and you want to be in business with this concept for a long time, pick somebody that you like, somebody that you have a good rapport with. You're going to be in business with them. They're going to be your tag team fighter defending your IP. It's really important you have that relationship. So that's what I did with Margaret. Margaret and I wound up developing all of the battle tactics, the defensive tactics, the attack tactics, with the dog bone as an example. I know the success that piece was having is going to be copied. So I thought, here's another idea. I'm going to go ahead and design around my own design. Patent it, and I didn't even bring these other 2 dog bone shapes to the market. But I did have people do exactly what I forecasted, that they would come into the market with those designs. And I called them up. Hi, my name is Brian. You probably didn't know, but I actually have IP on this too. So that is another tactic that you may want to think about when you're doing your new idea. Some of these patterns, like the fish, were very common shapes, geometrics or whatever. What could be more generic than a circle? So here I have a question for you. Can you patent a circle? Any hands there? Can you patent a circle? There's a patent for a circle-shaped carabiner. I brought samples of circle-shaped carabiners for you tonight. After the talk, come on up and I'll show you some of these samples. The circle-shaped carabiner is a classic example of secret sauce. What is the secret sauce? In design work, I have learned that the secret sauce is finding a product and look at it, identify what it is, and identify what is the opposite. All the carabiners in the history of carabiner manufacturing since the Civil War was focused on utility. In utility, carabiners require a straight side that gives you the most strength. What is the opposite of the strongest carabiner you could make? Would be a circle-shaped carabiner. So in that, I revealed an aha moment in design. This is one of the single most successful carabiners. Sold millions of them or licensed them. You'll see them all over the world. What did Candace Johnson's advice say again? Keep changing it. From a circle to a yin-yang, yin-yang with Mickey, South Korean, peace sign straps. I did the Grateful Dead Steal Your Face circle style skull. And my favorite carabiner is the most artistic hybrid, real art carved into the utility. Not so strong, but it looks awesome carabiner, the dragon-shaped carabiner. Coming to the end, you've got a very productive mind. You're coming up with innovations, whatever your category is, whether it's how things are made, how they function, or how they look. You have to understand tactics to protect your ideas. We happen to be seated, we are born or active in our markets in the most awesome nation in the world because you have a chance to protect your ideas. Other countries don't do that. So your tactics are two styles. One is conventional and one is unconventional. Lawyers all know conventional tactics on how to protect your ideas, the actions you're going to take to do it. First, like I said before, find your attorney, negotiate the costs, do it up front, establish your relationships, benefits, loyalty. I've stayed with Margaret Polson as she has moved off onto her own practice. I stayed with her. I have somebody that's always had my back, and I will have her back. Patent simple designs first. Patent the parts of your products that other people can copy the most easily. I did that with the dog bones, heart stars, whatever, within the drawings using dotted lines. That gives you broader coverage. We didn't have that at the front end. We use that tactic now all the time. It's been effective for us. Broadens your coverage. I told you about the evidence trail. It's crucial. It is so important that you have that evidence trail, particularly the most important part when I was copied by, during that time, the largest retailer in the world. And they were in my booth, looked at these pieces, and I go, oh my God, this is great. I want to bring them into my massive retailer, global retailer. And I went down and I visited, did my dog and pony show in this Midwestern state. And they turned around, just gave them to their keychain manufacturer and had them all knocked off. But I was smart enough to create the evidence trail in advance of going to my debut at their offices, showing that all of these pieces were patented, so that when they knocked them off, I just said, okay, 3 times damages. I have proof that you did it with knowledge. Crucial, huge. The difference between a BB gun and a howitzer. 3 times damages includes the threat of paying attorney's fees. Combine all of that together, and I have had success in defending IP with 10 of some of the biggest corporations in the United States. Be wise when to sue and who to sue. I've been successful with corporations because corporations make decisions logically. They use equations. They're mechanical. If I fight this guy who has proof that we knew, and the cost would be pretty easy to decide if you're an employee at that company, okay, it's not worth it. Let's come to an agreement, pay this, whatever, or license. But if you sue a proprietor, I forewarn you, if you have an infringer who is a highly successful millionaire, multimillionaire, or billionaire, who is still in charge of his enterprise, he doesn't make decisions from a mechanical application of logic. His decisions well from his ego. He doesn't really care about the money. He wants to win. He's accustomed to winning. Be forewarned about that aspect. It's real. Defending your profits. I learned in taking legal action over 65 times that if you go quickly, when an infringer has not invested a huge amount of money into protecting his IP, he'll give up much more easily than the person that you just put it off and you waited 2 years. I'll follow up on him in 2 years. If he's got $80,000 in profit on your designs, he's already got it in the bank, they tend to spend up to $80,000 in the legal fight before you're saying, I'll go. So don't hesitate at all. You have to go quickly. It's really important. Now let's talk about unconventional tactics. The unconventional part is unique and it's fun. For me, I enjoy doing it. Unconventional tactics, first is soft. I mentioned it before. Before sending antagonistic cease and desist letters, try and identify the person, drag in the back. If you're the guy that will ultimately decide how the lawsuit is settled, I'm going to try and call you and establish some sort of a rapport, antagonistic or friendly, and know that at the front end before you do send that cease and desist letter or file the lawsuit. If you can have a conversation with the ultimate decision maker, it is immensely empowering for your mind and how you make your chess-like moves in a potential lawsuit or in the settlement dealing. Attack your infringers with both U.S. and foreign patents. So it was very obvious to me. I wound up making the carabiners in Asia. I made the webbing in Europe. I had to get comfortable with attacking the factories over there. whether it's east or west. I had the most infringements came from factories out of China. So what did I do? A couple unconventional things, some conventional, but I wound up filing for patents in China on those shapes. I have hundreds of shapes. I picked those that I knew would be knocked off in China. Do you think China would knock off something like a yin-yang? Absolutely. Would they knock off a fish? Absolutely. A circle? Absolutely. So I wound up getting Chinese patents. It was extremely effective for me when the very unconventional tactics had to be used. I wound up going to trade shows in China, and I would go through the aisles, and I would see the infringing factories, and they would have their walls covered with all of my designs. And I would go up to them, and I would say, those are all my designs. Take those down. You shouldn't be selling those. They said, oh, no problem. Well, we're not going to sell in the United States. And I said, well, you got to take them down. Because first, you're right. I am patented in America. So yes, everybody patents in America. We only sell in other countries. I said, yeah. But the problem is, I patent them in China too. So I pulled out a 3-ring binder and paged through the American patents. See? My dog went up there, my circle up there, my star over there, my heart over there. And I turn over, and here's my Chinese patent for the fish and the star and the heart and the yin-yang. Like, oh my God. And then they pull them down, so much so, it was so effective that I literally had to go back to my hotel room, dump my clothes out of my suitcase, and go through the trade shows filling my roll-on suitcase with those sales samples. How effective was it? It was pretty effective. One thing with doing business in China, Chinese people, are very, very focused and sensitive to doing the right thing, because the consequences of doing the bad thing, the wrong thing, in China are dramatically more aggressive than they are with us here. That's worth a whole nother conversation. But if there were people, and I have done this, that were copying my things, I did another thing. I flew, as an example, over to one college kid graduated from college, copied my website, and offered all of my products at pennies on the dollar in volumes of 5,000 pieces and higher. Copied the whole page, took my name off, and put his name on. So I said to him, I knocked on his office, basically unannounced, sat down and I said, listen, we just joined the World Trade Organization. You want to be able to sell in the American market. You have to play with these World Trade Organization rules. You want to play in my market. I've been in this market. I've developed this market. I invented this market. You want to be in that. I said, you need to decide right now. You're brand new. You're new in business. If you want to play there, that's fine and dandy. I love it. You love it. I have no problem with that. But if you're going to try and sell my stuff in my market, you want all of the top customers, right? In America, this is the golden egg for you guys. Anybody, whatever the product is. Shoes, washing machines, cars. You want to do business in any market, there are very few people that you want. There may be 5 big customers, like in the outdoor equipment industry, REI, LL Bean, Go Hunting, Cabela's. Very few titans. Well, I know all of them. I will destroy your reputation in a second if you try and rip me off. can't protect outside of America in a lot of these patterns. He agreed to stop doing it. He wound up selling in countries that I didn't have IP protection. I actually built a business on it, which is a little frustrating, but it was an asymmetric tactic. He was, we'll say, somewhat logical, accepting those arguments. The personality of you, how you project yourself, what his personality is going to be like, that's an imprecise tactic, but it does work in some situations. Should be always in your quiver approach. When you are doing your negotiations on an agreement, always do the negotiations in a humble fashion and approach the settlement as a cooperative exit thing, not, I want to take a pound of flesh, unlike Shakespeare's Shylock, right? If you do that, you're going to maintain a more effective negotiation. Include a special penalty paragraph because, for example, in some of the largest retailers, they're so big that I would have a settlement on an infringement case, and 4 years later, they're doing the same daggone infringements because the people that were involved in it moved on. New staff came in, and they're like, oh, those are cool carabiners. Let's run them. By including that paragraph for a repeat offender, it tends to eliminate and reduce the amount of combat you do to reach your agreement, your final agreement, second time or third time around. Those are examples of the Chinese patents that I was using when I was using the bravado at the trade shows. So, coming to the end here, I'm in my 31st year taking ideas, manufacturing them in America as much as I possibly can. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm a patriot. I love America. I want to keep everything I possibly can locked up here in the United States of America. But when I create these ideas, I've collected through 30 years hundreds of registered, unregistered webbing designs. I've got 200 patents awarded, issued, or expired. I've sold over 50 million pieces in the last 15 years. I've had to take legal action over 65 times. Cease and desist letters with the smallest mom and pop operations all the way to the biggest corporations in the retail world. In licenses, rather than being always antagonistic and combative, I find it much more effective to actually yield some, earn some revenue by licensing it to the infringer. They decided that they think their market would be interested in it and they could make some money with it. I say, okay, let's do that. It's a little different than what Apple did, if you remember. They wanted to keep their innovations to themselves in playing that game or that tactic. Microsoft took off and was far more successful at the front end. I've been able to keep at least 40 to 50 jobs for 30 years. We're actively manufacturing in Longmont, Colorado. I have the sanguine distaste of having to compete with all my competitors with my designs. The patents, the one maybe negative of design patents is the younger life or shorter 14-year life of a patent. At 30 years, I have 6 children, 3 boys, 3 girls. They're still in grade school, and now I have people competing with my own designs. It frustrates me. I think a patent's life should be measured off of the age of your children. You shouldn't have to compete against your own ideas while they're still in school. I've had to deal with all of these issues in all of those categories of products that I do. A year ago, I could say $500,000 spent and retrieved $1 million. I did do battle with a substantial proprietor billionaire, and I've changed that. So now I'm closer to 770 spent and a little bit more than $1 million recovered. So it's not an easy game. It's a fluid payback. With the biggest issue that I think that I picked up from all of you before we got started is how do I take my idea and monetize it, turn it into money that you can actually keep in your pockets at the end of the day. You have to decide, do you want to sell the idea and not make it, or protect the idea and manufacture it and sell it yourself? Sell it yourself. You give it passion, then nobody can really touch it. There's one thing that I've learned. You all have passion for your ideas. Nobody can telegraph that energy. And if you learn one thing about sales, one thing sells, and that is enthusiasm. Only inventor has the enthusiasm. A lot of people think that a patent somehow, some way means once I get that, it's like a jackpot. Biggest misnomer. Think of your patents as a potential revenue flow. If you get enough of them, keep changing them, remember that advice. You'll have a lot of little revenue flows that actually turn into what can be or become a Mississippi revenue flow, size flow. I think it's very important to protect your ideas. Manufacturing has been leaving the richest countries for the history of mankind. Great Britain was the richest sovereign nation. All of that manufacturing went away too. Remember, they sailed around the world because they were seeking lower cost labor. That will always go. Manufacturing is kind of like a mechanical thing, but ideas are not, and they're only really protected well in the United States of America. We have teeth in our protective system. If somebody tries to steal and take your stuff, you call a policeman. You go and protect against somebody stealing your ideas. You go to the IP attorneys. They're good guys and ladies. If we don't protect the ideas, we will lose that market too. I developed a variety of all these carabiners, whistles. I've done water bottles and belt buckles and various things. I've had people take that idea and actually do a better job, get a better design. Right now, an S-shaped carabiner has gobbled up dozens of retail pegs that I have in stores. It's the S-shaped carabiner is a Chinese man's design. So here we are. I am confronting bringing American innovation and ideas, and China has come to the point where they are starting to go toe-to-toe with us intellectually with ideas and things like that. It's a super viable and aggressive thing that's occurring in commerce. It's super important. Right now, As I mentioned, at the front end of 30 years, everybody wanted to be in America. That's the golden egg. That's the target, right? Well, it's flipping. Our companies are doing dramatic things to try and get into China and do business in China. Remember, we only have 340 million people. China has 1.4 billion. That's only 1 billion people more to sell to than we are in America. And their buying power and capacity is going exponentially. It's a big deal. I've visited China over 110 times. That's not counting the times that I go in and out of China to go to other countries back and forth. What I'm seeing in China is really almost, is not disturbing, but it's, oh my gosh, I grew up in America and I thought, America's the greatest in every aspect. Well, I see cities in China that have skylines that blow me away. How creative, innovative, and more modern that we have in the United States of America. Not quite as perfect, but they're almost there. In every market, there is a very small number of people that provide innovations for that market. What's the small number of people? I'm going to tell you that between 4 to 8 people. I don't care what the market is. But these things, chairs, bags, candelabras, cameras, all of that, you pick any market, I have learned that there are only a handful of actual people that provide ongoing innovations. Even if it's dishwashing soap or shoe polish. Tiny number of people. Do not ever be discouraged with your idea. If your idea is something funky and unique in that market, if you get it in your head that there are only 8 other guys that sit them in a room, you're capable of competing with them. Don't be afraid to step into that environment and go toe-to-toe. It's really vibrant. It stimulates your creativity. It's wonderful. I find it fun and exciting. I hope you do. At the end, the United States is great in protecting ideas. It's all we have left in America to keep our country vibrant and healthy, because manufacturing is leaving America. All we have left is our golden egg economy and the thinkers that create the design. I created a little diagram just to kind of create a visual tool for introducing your idea. If you introduce your idea with a patent, you're going to get some green, right? You're going to get some money. Follow the green line. You reach, my experiences, you reach the apex, the maximum amount of profit in about 3 years. I've done that 100 times, maybe 200. It takes usually 3 years to come up with a good idea. You dump it in the market, you run like heck. Other people go, oh my God, that's a great idea, and they try to figure out a way to get a bite of that new market that's been created. They take about 3 years to finally solve a way into it and get around your IP. But if you don't have IP, you're going to get a big jump, maybe a year, and it flatlines almost immediately. If you don't have IP protection, the amount of money that you're foregoing, it's really quite dramatic. Right. You're going to either have you're going to have competitors within. Like I told you, my first patented buckle, I had a competitor in 120 days with a duplicate in my own trademark, in my trade show from South Korea. within 120 days. So by the time that they take orders and bring that knockoff product to compete head-to-head with me, that's within 1 year, all of a sudden the profit that I stood to gain goes to a flat line. When you have only one other competitor competing with you, fat profit, luxurious, awesome profit on a great, cool idea evaporates within a year. So you have to keep that in mind when you do your cost-benefit analysis on doing a patent or not. Keychains don't generate a huge amount of cash like selling an Apple computer or a laptop or a cell phone. These are small dollar volume items, so there are certain items that I've developed, I decided not to patent. And the grand irony that some of them are my best-selling pieces. It's just absolutely maddening. But those are pretty much a very thorough description of 30 years of grappling with how to monetize your ideas. So, questions? I'm very happy to answer anything, give you guidance on developing domestically or internationally. Sure. That's my 65 legal actions. Sure, they do it. And periodically, I'll get it from Great Britain. I'll get it from Germany. I've had it from France. Western, Asian. People that are see something and they're motivated by trying to capture part of this new idea, they get so much enthusiasm, they get a little blind and take a shot at it. It's not just China. It happens in the United States too. It's man's instinct. They have an appetite. Some people will do it in a nefarious fashion. I have testified in grand juries and put men in jail, in prison in Illinois, doing things like that. I put a gentleman in his late 60s perpetrating fraud. I helped put him into Leavenworth. There's evil out there all the time. It's always there. It's a constant. Don't let it stop you from pursuing your idea. Do your idea. Get it out. Your body, your mind, your emotion, everything. You want to get it out there. That's the cool part of being an inventor. It's not about the money. It's about your idea. It's part of your body, your passion. It's part of you. That's the exciting part of innovation. Sure, Craig? Yes. It's not about percentages. It's not about the capturing and being selfish with your market share. Make your effort to negotiate with somebody with the realistic part of law and commerce, and that is Many times your infringers are from other markets that you had not planned to even be in. They bring in customers that I never would have been successful getting into. I'm very thoroughly known throughout the outdoor equipment industry in the United States, Europe, and China. They all know me. But I didn't really know the CD carry case industry. I didn't have sales avenues into birthday giveaway gifts. I didn't do a big market penetrating business in back to school categories. These are all markets that I was able to participate in through a retroactive cooperative licensing agreement. So I was able to capture and bring in some revenue in places where I wouldn't have otherwise been. Do you have a question? Yes. Yep. It got better when all of the European countries bundled together and became the European Union. So that helps dramatically. I haven't, to this day, had to defend something in a legal action in Europe yet. Revisit me in 12 months. I've been grappling with a situation. My designs are being sold in Europe, and for various reasons, I began to explore the ability to defend IP in the European Union. And it turns out that in Germany in particular, they've got more aggressive laws for protecting your IP than you have here. And the cost to litigate, for example, on a patent, types of patents that I have here, would be the difference between $500,000 or $100,000. That much of a decrease in cost, because the designer's innovation is given even more power today in America, if you measure it by cost. Richard?
Do you go to trade shows to highlight products? At least you do. Do you ever take an idea to a trade show versus a product that's in production?
Yes. I do all of that. I've gone to hundreds of trade shows in Europe, America, and China, and Taiwan. There's one in 2 weeks in Taipei. I go there with new product. Sometimes I'll go with an idea that is behind my back, and I will pull somebody over to the side and do a private showing. Sometimes we'll show the idea so that I can sell the idea and not have to make it. All of those approaches are super viable. And it's easy to do. The biggest roadblock that I see with inventors is just fear to go and do it. And it's kind of funny, but it's because of being a rock climber that I actually strengthened my ability to confront things like that. In rock climbing, you come up against a problem. We'll say it's a roof. Are you going to climb through that roof? My God, climb upside down? It looks crazy. Then you actually start working it and do roofs completely upside down. Literally. Sometimes I've climbed roofs. You climb up and you climb upside down, downhill, and then keep going up. But after you do this through rock climbing, is why it's so effective in strengthening self-confidence. I was able to jump into these things. They're pyrrhic, it looks intimidating when you have your idea to go ahead and run to the market, put it out there. Don't be intimidated. Go ahead and do it. Get a bite of that apple. Once you have success with it, you'll have the best experience. I was saying to one of the other gentlemen here tonight, I remember the first person I saw in a generic John Q. Public walking down the street. I was driving down the street. I saw this guy wearing one myself. Absolutely thrilling. I remember that like today. That's what we do it for. Almost all of us. It's not about trying to get a jackpot. We have emotional desires to be recognized for that innovation. And it really is awesome. Once you experience it, you just want to keep doing more and more and more. It'll be easier, just like everything else. All of the masters in any category, playing the violin or playing basketball, it's better, improves through repetition, practicing it.
What do you say about choosing which ideas to follow, if they're revolutionary versus evolution, the different challenges that you see on market acceptance of everything?
Recognizing and measuring, trying to forecast your cost and benefit analysis on how you're going to push it into the market and how to try and retain the profitability that you can get out of it. If it's revolutionary, you're going to want to invest more. If it's evolutionary, it's likely to have another 6 guys who are going, oh, yeah, that's the right idea. And you know what? I think I can make it even a little bit better this way. Every time even a revolutionary new product makes its debut in the marketplace, we'll say the Apple phone or an iPod. There are only 5 or 6 guys that actually, they go, wow, I know I can make a better one. There are all these other ways that I can make. I'm going to call mine a Samsung phone or Galaxy. Cool bicycle. Let's make it out of carbon fiber. I can do carbon fiber and I'll do it with a more creative way. Only 5 or 6 guys will actually follow through and make drawings and explore the next evolutionary steps. Only 2 will follow through. There are really very few people that will compete with you with your idea. It's not the big, mean, wild ogre world. It really is just one guy and one gal going to be competing with you, trying to improve your idea and get a piece of that accomplished. The way to answer that is there are some companies that you want to sell to who will not sell your product without having a contract, especially licensed, highly visible companies. They will be a target with other social justice people. They'll say, oh, your clothes are being sewn by 11-year-olds in Pakistan. If you do your manufacturing with contracts like that, you can demonstrate, again, create your trail of good faith manufacturing. You can show that you've taken the steps to respect what they want, part of your relationship. Remember, business, successful business is done through relationships. I have a degree in business. Throw that away. It was far more important to understand if you want to be successful in business, start with relationships. My best relationships and contract manufacturing jobs were done on handshakes. With a man in France, I consider a friend to this day. I've had his daughters, all of them, 4 or 5 daughters, at my house for 6 weeks. I learned to speak Mandarin so I can show I am genuine in my interest to have a lifelong relationship with my Chinese manufacturers. 你会说中文吗? Do you speak Chinese? You will soon. Other questions?
You find that there are coaches that come and goes and look for ideas that they can invent
100% of the time.
100%.
100% of the time. Why? Because that's where they are. Everybody knows. You go to that trade show, that market, if you want to be on the cutting edge, you want to show that you're the smart guy with a cutting edge idea, smaller folks show it. The big companies, they keep it behind a veil in a special showing in a closed room at the trade shows. I have had, in the development of the pieces that I have up here for you to see, when I debuted those pieces, I have had to literally follow a girl out in the booth, put my arm around her saying, so what do you think you're going to be doing with all those pieces in your bag there? Because I watched her go down the wall, just going like this, grabbing all of the pieces. I was in a trade show in downtown Denver only a month ago, and we had a person taking pictures of all of my new stuff. And then we had to put the arm around and say, what do you think you're doing with the pictures of our new product? You want me to trash them? Yeah, let's watch you do that. That happens all the time. When I first debuted this whole unique carabiner, custom carabiner market, in one show, I had over $7,000 in $1 carabiners stolen. The next show, I literally used cable, thin steel cable, anchor tied to the new pieces, new designs, to the boards that were attached to the wall. Stolen overnight. Another trade show, I had just debuted Cool Tools, these pieces. They were very innovative at that time, and I knew they were kind of revolutionary in the carabiner market. I knew that somebody's going to try and steal them. I'm like, okay, I had 24 of them. So I had 12 on one of 2 pegs, and first thing I'm going to do at the end of the day, after showing them to everybody, I'm going to take them off the wall so they can't be stolen because of experience. You know, I'm a very experienced guy with this stuff. Sure enough, went over there and the whole peg was gone. So then I cabled that against the wall. Same thing, it was stolen in the middle of the day, not even overnight. It became so frustrating that I wound up getting video cameras and saying, you're being watched. I've had experiences of Chinese folks that know me in China at their trade shows, following me around the trade show to find out what I'm doing, what questions I'm asking. Oh, they're still worth it. Yeah. It's the price of entry into the game. Yeah, it's a blood sport. We are, as inventors, launch a concept in the marketplace. Most people don't have our emotional intelligence. Most people have IQ. successful inventors have EQ. We're really unique. Like I said, very few people. Um, we've just got to manage it, understand it, and go in. Just launch right in, both feet, go into the game. It is not as tough as you think. It's tough, but managing your own ideas is better than working for others managing their ideas.
Amazon seems to be growing in their importance. What do you think? Relative to what you're doing in your products and
That is a huge issue. In my world of 30 years selling ideas at a wholesale level and having other people vend it in their retail outlets. Those retail outlets are going bankrupt at an accelerating pace. 2 years ago, we lost, I read in the Wall Street Journal, approximately 2,800 retail companies, which represents more than 2,800 stores, right? Went bankrupt. The last measure I saw was 8,900. For example, in my industry, Sports Authority, the Sports Authority Stadium in Denver, down the street here, done and gone. How many stores disappeared there? They went away because of the Amazon factor. The Amazon factor is really amazing. It's almost like flu comes into your country and it's gobbling up everything it's got contact with. It's compelling manufacturers like myself to make a paradigm change in how to vend our products. And if we don't do something to deal with that effectively, we're going to go away too. It's dramatically destabilizing. I will share that there are laws right now, policies now, that enable people in China that will duplicate products that I do, and you can purchase them on Amazon, and they can ship them at a lower cost from Hong Kong to Denver than I can mail my product from Longmont to Denver. That's one of the big policy issues that is being addressed a bit in our federal government right now. I don't know if you follow the status of what's going on in commercial policies for manufacturing and selling. We're actually having some success in peeling away some of the policies that it makes it very difficult to do business in the United States. Any other questions? Answer for?
Well, let me go back to that Amazon point.
Sure.
And your basic statement that you want to get.
Yes.
Now, auguring down a little further,
Sure.
what are you planning on doing relative to Amazon's ferocious attack? What do you see happening to your business this year?
To answer accurately, we are actively adjusting. We have two competing approaches to this problem. My sales manager, whose expertise I have followed and respected with great reverence. Um, Her opinions, she's been very successful in understanding with intuition that blows me away all the time. She is fully invested in the notion of getting our product into and be fully seated in the online sales systems that the dominant players in our market are selling through. So we're selling our product online. You'll find it on Amazon or like REI or LLB or other Cabela's type websites. I have hundreds of patterns, for example, in webbing. Retailers only maintain 8 or 10 patterns. Some of those patterns that we offer on our website directly, where they're not available from other locations. So we're developing that side a bit.
Without disturbing your vendors, in other words?
Like I said, the items that I would offer on my site are either not available at my customers' locations, or they're available from me at a higher price than my customers.
So far, so good on that.
It's impossible to have a end decision on that. It's highly fluid, highly fluid. Yeah, I think that probably the best advice that was given to me, and it's part of my conversation right now on how to do it, and that is to spend increasingly larger amounts of money on developing the brand directly as opposed to doing it through a surrogate vendor or outlet. Yep, that's exactly right.
What is the latest trend of easy off on price?
Foreign vendors shipping from sovereign nations. Knockoffs. The market for a product is that whole retail market is collapsing on itself. There will be a plateau. It's kind of like trading in foreign currency or the American dollar. You have a bull market, it'll become so saturated with bull players, everybody says, wait a minute, why are we so high? And it'll correct. It'll go down until, wait a minute, this is way too low, and then it'll find the bottom. Same thing is true vending product in a retail environment. We don't know. It's total conjecture at this point, hypothesis. We don't know how many retailers at the end of the day from this mega sweep out of the retail vendors that got into business in the last 20 years. We were really quite prosperous economy in the last 20, 30 years. Everybody was getting into business and being somewhat profitable with it. We build up, but we have everybody in the room is making a little bit of money, so we're going to try a little bit harder to get in that momentum, and everybody experiences the economical exuberance that economists talk about, and they call it animal spirits. And we are experiencing some of that in America right this minute. We have super high approval ratings for a somewhat unusual president, but with a tax cut that is somewhat modeled off war gets fired by Ronald Reagan's tax cut, that tapped into what's called the animal spirits economically. When that occurred, America experienced the biggest bull market in the history of any country in the world, spanning decades. We have a lot of turbulence. We had a correction. All markets do rhythms. Why the trading industry is active. Men believe that they can forecast the rhythms. Problem is, almost all rhythms occur 7 years plus or minus 1 year. Trying to find out when that change is going to happen, right? Right now, we're in a really unusual situation because we're in a bull market, which has just had a recent 10% correction in 9 years. It's really unusual. It's the second time, only the second time in 100 years that a rhythm has gone that long. So if your perception is, well, look at all these 7 years, we're headed for a big one. But then you look at the tax cut that was just launched and the exuberance and the animal spirits that have been stirred up. We're at the top of a big bull market, and tons of people want to go even further. It's a very, very unique situation right now. Don't have that answer. I'd love to have that answer. You know, where will be? And here you have the president of China is now going to wind up being the sole leader of China. Correct. It's a big deal. China will eat our lunch unless there is a revolution. Over there. It's an amazing thing for me to witness in 22 years in China. And seeing and feeling, tapping the tone of the people. And I felt and saw, and I'm excited for them, enthusiasm as their culture developed into a very prosperous culture with nothing but success. It's like everybody, people are making millions. There are men that made millions of dollars making these carabiners for me. I mean, just set for life. But another thing has happened. The collective ego, the sense of power, and the notion that it's somewhat owed to the culture of China to catch up with and make more right the ignoble experiences they had at the hands of Westerners. And their current president, Xi Jinping, has been successful in tapping into that rising tide of patriotism in China and coalescing it effectively as a sole leader, with the capability of a sole leader, so much so that all of the political support system is visibly on board with that idea. We had in that sole party an experiment with democracy, which is on the verge of reverting. The conversations of people, whether it be most conspicuous in Hong Kong, but also in mainland, the conversations are echoing anxiety about the government intruding in or taking away their liberty. When I was there 30 days ago, they had just debuted, just in advance of their national holiday, the Chinese New Year, Google-style classes that have facial recognition that is more advanced than anything in any other country in the world. So that the government facial recognition technology can be improved in its reach. You have cameras, we'll say, on lampposts or the corner of the room or something like that. That is somewhat effective. But when you put it onto classes of a police officer, which they launched 30 days ago, now that they can look underneath the table, around the corner, the reach is incredible everywhere. This is starting to freak out the common man in China. Not exactly, no. By virtue of the social media, two things are happening. One is the people in China are more aware of what's going on, but it also empowers the government to know what everybody is saying there and have more ability to identify and suppress things that are inconsistent with the goals. I try to behave myself over there, and I don't think they will surrender their technology to us. Somebody would watch me and identify me. So, that's a culture, a legal system is the last thing in the world that I want to grapple with. And even, let's put it this way. In 22 years in China, I've done business with both young folks that are dressed to the T like they just stepped off of a sidewalk in New York, high fashion. And I've dealt with very aged Chinese men that grew up taking their children to public execution. I do business with people that have been taken as children to witness a man's execution. Now you understand, China is not a Christian-based culture. The question is, how can you manage 1.4 billion people from a governmental perspective? How can you do that effectively to keep everybody in line, doing good things instead of bad things? Make the threat of punishment so vibrant, people so sensitive to that happening if they do something wrong. You will get in line. Tiananmen Square. They told them to move. They didn't move. They used automatic weapons to move them. They're very serious. An interesting video was created by Wired magazine, and it was about a fishing village called Shenzhen. Shenzhen was one of the first cities that China bestowed upon advantages, graft, whatever, be able to start manufacturing where we have little economic centers, and they did that with several cities in China. This fishing village today now is the ground zero spot that is more productive than San Francisco in the Silicon Valley in high-tech electronics. Shenzhen today is producing more innovation than anywhere in America because we have so many restraints through our policy to try and make things in the United States. In Shenzhen, capitalism is far more vibrant and unrestrained than in the United States of America. Unrestrained capitalism made America the most successful economy in the world. So as we became rich, everybody tries to get a chunk of that cake. And they do it through good intentions, but in doing so, they have literally thrown restraints and chains on our economy and my ability to manufacture tons of different ways. They don't have those restraints in China. That's why China is just outpacing us in commerce all over the place. If you get on YouTube and watch the story of Shenzhen's climb from fishing village to a most powerful location in the world for electronic innovation, you will get a very interesting message. It's almost disturbing, specifically for people in this inventors group. At the end of this 1 hour long clip, you will see the message that if you have an idea, it can't be yours. You think you can be so selfish with your idea? It has to go to the world. So screw you with your patents. Keep in mind that this culture is about ready to overtake us. Speak up, Craig. Yeah, the people in China are absolutely, they're awesome people. They're just like you and me. They are so excited and enthusiastic about the Wild West in all these different markets they want to dabble in. I've never seen such broad cultural interest in starting businesses as I see in China. There's 10 Chinese people starting new businesses for every one in America. It's mind-boggling. They'll have multiple businesses going on. I've known people in 15 years and go through 20 companies trying to find the right niche. They aren't. They're not stopping with the fear factor. As innovators in America, we're fearful. I'm a little afraid to go into this and do this or that. They're like, whatever, I'm going to give it a shot. You know, that's the way I grew up. In the 70s, I wanted to go out and mow lawns and do things on my own and start experimenting with ideas like that. In China, they happen to have a culture in the last generation. They've seen, everybody knows somebody in that generation that starts business and became immensely wealthy because China was coming from such a low spot when the wages were 80 cents an hour. When I first started traveling to China, there were lines outside of factories. Factories had walls around them. Why would you have walls around a factory? It was to keep the people out because everybody wanted a job in there. Half of the factories that I manufacture product in still have those walls. But there are no lines to get in anymore. Now it's help wanted signs. Every year, people like become more educated and more capable, more Western savvy in commerce. They acquire a skill 1,000 miles from home in Shenzhen, and then they go back during the Chinese New Year, which just ended. Today is the first day back. 80% will come back. 20% will stay in their hometown, and they'll start a business using that skill set. The country is going gangbusters in business. Cool and vibrant. It's neat to see. I love seeing it because the country is lifting out of poverty, and that's fabulous. The question is, where does it all end? China just decided that the whole South China Sea and East China Sea belongs to them. Big deal. We'll see what happens on that one. That's drifting a little bit away from how to bring your innovative ideas to market, but that's the biggest market. Talking about China is actually an important component of your awareness as a mature business person. Pay attention to what's going on over there. Not only to protect yourself, but try and figure out how to access their market. What do you what? What do we sell to China? That's an interesting question. We try to sell everything we have to China, but Trump profiled a big issue, and that is we have unfair agreements, meaning, as an example, Chinese people can come to America and buy something in America and own it. We are not afforded the same opportunity over there. It was in the newspaper, if you're following one of the largest insurance companies, successful insurance companies from China, bought the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York. And then the government took over the insurance company. Now China owns that landmark in downtown New York. Those dynamics in business, it's a big deal. I would set up businesses in China. I think about it all the time, literally all the time. But I can only be a 49-center. You can be in America if you're Chinese, you can do that. But it's not equal trade relations. And that, I'm hoping, can be reversed and or adjusted and achieve parity in our relations. That happened at the front end, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever, with Nixon and Kissinger to launch commerce in a third world nation, thinking that commerce will lift them, and that's a good goal for both sovereign nations to work toward. But now that the culture in China has achieved an economic point of parity with the size of our economy, it's time to adjust that so that we're dealing as equals, not as inferiors or superiors. political, but it is part of what's going on. Thank you. All right. I brought a few pieces up here for you to take home. Yeah. So you can check out what I was talking about back there, but. Yeah. This
Oh,
is,
it's got measuring and, oh yeah,
Yeah.
your bicycle. And,
yeah, so I have like standard rule